What's going on, everybody? It's the Indoor Hunter, and we're back with a brand new beginner's guide for the Hunter Call of the Wild. I've noticed a lot of new members are coming to the community, and I figured now is the best time to make this. I've made one of these in the past. It's a little cringy. Don't go watch it. A lot of the information is outdated now, and with some newer game mechanics, there's some stuff that people need to know, maybe even some veteran players out there. And before we get started, I wanted to let everybody know that this video is going to be broken into segments, and so you don't have to listen to me blabber for 15 minutes in order to find something out. I'm going to put those timestamps in the description below. So our first set of tips here are going to be for those new beginners that have just started playing the game. There's some quick basics that the game may or may not show. Honestly, it's been so long since I've played through the quote-unquote tutorial, I honestly don't remember, so we're just going to kind of briefly go over these. If you have any more questions on them, let me know in the comments below, and hopefully I can get to them. We're going to start with the compass. You can see here on the right, it may seem a little confusing. You can actually go to your settings, to your interface, and change your compass from fixed to free. And that's going to allow your compass to actually rotate with you, and it makes direction much easier to discern where you're going. Something else about this compass, you'll note the green triangle there. That is actually the direction the wind is blowing and where your scent is being carried. So you want to pay attention to that, because if you're walking up on a group of whitetail, for example, and they're right in your wind path, they're going to make you, they're going to run away, and you're not going to get a shot on them. And continuing with the HUD here, obviously you've got the ammo counter, you've got your health bar there. The little heart symbol is your heart rate. As you sprint around the map, as you're exploring, that's going to get higher and higher, and as you aim down sights, that'll also get higher and higher. So you want to make sure that is maintained so you're more accurate and you're not missing shots. The next really important things here to pay attention to, outside of your zeroing distance, that's something we'll touch on later. Your little microphone symbol there, that is the sound that you're making in the environment. And then that circle that you see there, that is your visibility to animals. Now, obviously, different stances will change your visibility in the sound that you make, the speed at which you move, various other, the types of material you're moving through will make a difference for that. So that's something you want to pay attention to when you're trying to be sneaky and get up close to animals. There is something new that they've added with the previous update. It's a new spook distance with firearms. It's now over 300 meters, so there's a good chance you're going to spook some animals with your weapon after you discharge it that you won't even see. Now, I think this is going to bring us a little more authenticism to the game. Some people don't like it, but this is something I myself am going to have to get used to, so I want to let you know, as a beginner player, watch out for that. You're going to spook animals, and it seems kind of obvious, I guess, in hindsight, that your rifle is going to spook multiple animals that were within 300 meters of you. But that's something that previously wasn't in place in the game, so if you're a veteran player returning, there's some new information. Make sure you take note of that. When it comes to visibility, there's some perks, and again, we'll talk about perks later. There's some perks that will help you with this, but obviously crouching, kneeling, prone, those stances are going to change that. The little white bar means you're pretty hidden, but you can actually use the environment to your benefit. Let's go hide in a little bush here, and I'll show you an example of that. So as you can see here, that bar completely disappears. That means you are completely hidden. Until the animal gets literally on top of you and touching you, they're not going to see you at all. This is the most effective piece of cover you can use outside of a tent or tripod. Not a tent, but a tripod or tree stand or hunting structure. Again, we'll touch on that more later. But those are kind of the basics of the HUD. Nothing too crazy. Something too to kind of help you out. Make sure to just go through and check your settings. There's a lot of different stuff, whether it's from your reticle shape, color, size, track colors, all that stuff. Make sure to go through those. Make yourself, or make it a little bit easier for yourself. You may not like some of the colors. You may be colorblind. I don't know. Just kind of go through and play around with those settings, something that you like and prefer. One of the most frequently asked questions that I see is, how do I make money and how do I make XP? And the best way, especially when you're first starting out, to do this is to follow your mission system. Go through there, complete missions. It's going to give you a good amount of XP and money. Obviously, harvesting animals is also going to give you money XP. That may not be the most proficient if you're just starting out, because you may not, it could be a little difficult to get animals. Again, that being said, probably the easiest way is through the mission system. It's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck. Something else that you can do is you can actually go through your map and discover landmarks, unlock lookout points in outposts. This will also give you a little bit of cash and a little bit of money or XP, so it kind of gives you some purpose to go out there and explore your maps. Again, it's pretty straightforward. It just takes time. Eventually, you'll get enough money and XP to start unlocking the fun stuff. For those beginner players out there, you may be wondering what you should buy first, and going forward with this is assuming you don't have any DLC. You obviously want to upgrade your weapon system. Again, pay attention to your class. The 243 is going to always be valuable. I've always got it with me, depending on which species you're hunting. 9 times out of 10, there's going to be a species on a map that you're going to need the 243. It's a great weapon. However, when it comes to hunting bigger game species, you want something bigger. So you've got the choice here when you're starting out, the 270 or the 7mm. The 7mm, hands down, without any DLC, is the best gun in the game. It allows you to harvest animals from whitetail all the way up to Cape Buffalo, so class 4 animals all the way up to class 9. Makes moose hunting much, much easier. The 270, though, is a good bridge between those two weapon systems. It's a great deer rifle. It's accurate, looks good. Not that that matters. But it's much, much cheaper, obviously, than the 7mm. But again, strive for unlocking that 7mm. It's going to really open the game up for you. It's going to allow a lot more opportunities. When it comes to rifle sights, again, this is user preference. I personally would recommend unlocking the Hyperion first, which I believe is these are actually locked behind rifle score anyway. So whenever you get the chance to unlock the Hyperion, it's definitely a very good scope. Unlock it. It's going to, again, make hunting much, much easier for you. Now, something that I don't recommend spending your hard-earned cash on is the hunting structures that you see spread around the map. Now, obviously, some missions do require you to hunt from them, but by and large, they're not the most useful tool. Obviously, hunting structures do hide you better. They allow for less hunting pressure as you harvest. That being said, they're not the most useful spot. When you're starting out, they're pretty expensive. Something else I don't recommend spending money on, at least starting out, is taxidermying animals. Just because, again, that is very expensive, especially if you screw up a shot. Those can get tens of thousands of dollars. And if you don't have the Trophy Lodge DLC, it's completely pointless. So don't spend your money on that unless you really, really, really want to. Outside of that, though, once you get your weapon and optic unlocked, it's kind of up to you. Go through, see what you want. Want a better collar, want better decoys, want better stuff like that. User preference. So let's talk about need zones. Need zones are probably the most important mechanic to learn and understand in the game. This is going to allow you to find where your animals actually are. So if you're out there trophy hunting, I see it asked all the time, how do I find diamonds? How do I find animals? There's no animals on my map. It's because you need to find your need zones. Your need zones are going to dictate where your animals are at a given time on the map. Each animal has their own respective drink times, their own feeding times, and their own resting times. A few animals don't actually have rest zone or drinking zones, but that's besides the point. Those animals, you don't really have to worry about that. Most of those are waterfowl species. I digress. So for me personally, it's a lot easier to hunt drink zones because typically water systems are much more open. That makes the animals much more visible to see. It's a lot easier to get to them. Again, that's user preference though, but I would recommend hunting waterways. So hit those waterways. Something else that you need to do is start to kind of learn what times animals drink. So when you're paying attention, so you can see here in game it's 11:16. So we know moose aren't going to be here. They may be close in the area, but they're probably not going to be here. However, we've got a whitetail zone that's definitely in the middle of their drinking time. So there's the likelihood of whitetail being in this area is pretty high. So that's going to help narrow down finding some species. But there's so many different animals in the game that it's actually kind of hard to remember what species drinks when and where. That's something, maybe make a cheat sheet, look it up online. I know they make apps for that too. So that's something to learn. It's really important to know your need zones. Get out there, find them. Need zones too are different for everybody. So my need zones are not going to be the same for you. They may be in the close area, but this is one of those things that everybody's need zones are different. And again, like we touched on previously, too much hunting pressure, you will erase those need zones. That's something you don't want to do. They will respawn eventually, but they're not going to be in the same spot. They could be somewhere else. So let's say, for example, you've got a trophy buck in one spot. You didn't realize he was there. You erase that need zone. He's going to find somewhere else to drink, and it's going to make it that much harder to harvest him. But that's pretty much it as far as need zones go. Again, it's important to find these. That way it's much, much easier to find your animals. However, you can play the game however you want and, just kind of willy-nilly go and explore throughout and hope to find stuff, which can be fun. I do that a lot. But, again, I just recommend finding your need zones, setting up on them, and your success rate's going to go way up. That you're going to want to pay attention to while you're playing the game, especially on maps that have a little more open view. Animals do not render in any closer than, I believe it's 420 meters. That can fluctuate depending on how elevated you are, but rule of thumb, anything over, I personally think anything over 400 meters, you're not going to see it. It's not going to render in. So if you're confused as to why you're not seeing animals out on these giant vistas like this, it's because they simply won't render in. Now this goes for PC all the way through PS4. Something else to note, here's a good example here. We've got a lesser kudu hanging out. Now the rangefinder says 300 meters, or 308 meters, but we're going to go to our map and actually look. So you can see here, it'll actually show up on your map as well. And in this case and scenario, the range-finding binoculars are accurate. It is 308 meters, but I've seen many instances where there may be grass or something like that blocking your view, which is somewhat realistic. I've had that experience in real life. It's not going to accurately portray that range for you, so you always want to make sure, and I do this quite frequently, I always check my map and make sure, okay, there we are, we're at 309 meters. That's how far it actually is. So as you can see, we just harvested this warthog. However, oftentimes, especially when you're starting out, you're not going to get drop shots like that with the 243 unless you're super, super lucky. So something you want to pay attention to after you fire an animal. Obviously, you want to go check, make sure there's any blood, make sure there's no vital blood, anything like that. But you can go to your map and actually see hunting pressure. And you may have seen this before, not sure what this is. So hunting pressure is an area on the map after you've harvested an animal that'll pop up and will basically cause other animals in the area to become nervous because obviously you're shooting stuff there. So this is something very important to pay attention to. You don't want too much hunting pressure. So you don't want to go crazy with it. You don't want to shoot everything that you see because if you cause too much hunting pressure, you're going to erase need zones. As you can see here, we've got warthog need zone, which our little fellow here was walking to. You can actually erase these and make it much, much harder to find animals. So pay attention to your hunting pressure. Don't add too much. Now, it can be a useful tool to dictate whether or not you've actually harvested an animal. Very useful to pay attention to. So if you see an animal run away and you think, man, did I actually hit that? Or did I kill it? And then you see hunting pressure pop up, that'll assure you that you did indeed get that animal. Again, this is something that can be both beneficial and the bane of your existence. Too much hunting pressure can be hard to get rid of. The darker and brighter it gets, the more hunting pressure that there is. And there's two ways to get rid of hunting pressure. That is adding more hunting pressure somewhere else on the map or simply by time. Now, that being said, the time method I don't recommend because it takes a long time. Now, our harvest screen here is actually going to provide a bunch of information. Now, obviously, you can see here that is vital organ blood. That's what it looks like whenever you make a vital hit on an animal. So when we go to confirm our trophy here, we can see the difficulty type, 3 easy. That's just simply kind of like its quote-unquote trophy level. You can see here where it says class 4. That's very important to pay attention to because that's going to dictate which weapon and which ammunition you need to use on this animal. Something else you can do, you can get an x-ray view to see which direction that bullet went through, which will make it useful over time as you study this and practice this. You can kind of gauge where vital organs are and make better shots. Again, important to pay attention to which class each animal is. That way you don't go ruining your harvest check. And so you can see here our harvest check, proper ammo used for this animal shot 2 times or less, intact trophy organs, hit 1 vital organ or more. You can see here with warthog the trophy organs are the skull, so you don't want to shoot them in the head. And for the most part, most animals, their trophy organs are going to be the skull. So don't go for headshots. There are some animals that you can, but for the most big game, that skull is going to be their trophy shots. Something else to pay attention to down here, you can see our cash and XP. Quick kill bonus, that's how fast the animal died. Your harvest check, obviously if you pass your harvest check. The consecutive harvest bonus, now you note that that's at 0. That is because consecutive harvest is how many animals you've, consecutively harvested. Say that 3 times fast, folks. So the more animals you shoot in a row and that you successfully pick up and harvest, the higher that will go and the more money you'll end up making. Now, let's say I didn't actually harvest, or I shot this animal, it died, and I don't pick it up. That will reset your consecutive harvest. So you don't want to do that. If you want to make more money, make sure you're getting that consecutive harvest bonus up. Again, same with XP. That will fluctuate. Each species has their own money and XP that goes towards them. Typically, the bigger animals, the more money and XP. Again, just to reiterate, the important thing to pay attention to here is the class of animal, because again, that's going to dictate what weapons you use. So we're going to go into our inventory here. We're going to look at our ammunition. So I used the 30-06, and you can see recommended classes 4 through 8. So it can harvest animals from class 4 all the way up to class 8. It shows the penetration rating and the expansion. And then you may notice too, there's actually 2 different types of ammunition here. We've got polymer tip and soft point. What are the difference between the two? The main one's going to be penetration and expansion. Expansion within the game is basically damage. However, that's not the most beneficial stat here. You're definitely going to want more penetration. The polymer tip ammunition is much more useful because you're going to be able to punch through bone, punch through multiple organs, especially at longer ranges. That being said, when you're starting out, when you buy a new rifle, for example, you're not going to have polymer tip ammunition unlocked. So you're going to have to use soft points until you can get enough experience with that weapon system in order to unlock those polymer tips. And generally, if you're hurting on money, soft point ammunition is much cheaper than the polymer tip. Something else that I see asked a lot is what skills and what perks should I use? At the end of the day, these are user preference. Something to take note about these as well, you cannot unlock all of them. You cannot unlock all the perks, and you cannot unlock all the skills, so pay attention to the ones that are going to suit your playstyle the most. At the end of the day, if you mess something up, you can reset them for a cost. It's generally pretty expensive to do so, so again, pay attention to what you're unlocking. Some of the perks that I personally would recommend, however, so especially whenever we're talking about weapons perks, your breath control, this will go towards all weapon categories. Just because it says rifles or handguns, for example, doesn't mean it's specific to that weapon system. This will carry over to all weapon systems. So your breath control, your zeroing distance is also very important. As I stated earlier in the video, that's something you're going to really, once you have this unlocked, you're going to really want to pay attention to what you're zeroed at. You don't want to be shooting at a diamond deer at 250 meters and you're zeroed for 75, because you're going to miss and be real sad about it. But go through, read these, see which ones fit your playstyle, see which ones that you may like, experiment with them. Again, you can reset them for a cost and try different playstyles out. When it comes to your actual skills, though, there are some very important ones that you should definitely unlock. Track knowledge, this is going to give you animal weights, animal gender, stuff like that. Obviously important if you're trying to find diamonds. Your soft feet, that's going to make you much quieter as you're moving. Improvise blind, this is going to make it much easier to hide within trees and shrubs. When you come down here to ambusher, spotting knowledge is huge. It allows you to see, not only spot the animal to where you can actually see it, and it'll add like a little outline around it, makes it much easier to see. Tells you the health of the animal, trophy weight, trophy size, all that stuff. Again, this is very important to have for trophy hunting. Another one that is super important to have is sight spotting. Again, some people I've seen not use this. I personally love it. This will allow you to actually spot animals with your rifle scope, not just for binoculars. So to me, this is a pretty important perk to have. Again, though, read through these. A lot of these are user preference. Read through them, see which ones suit your play style, and go from there. Something else to note though about skills and perks, once you hit a certain level, and I'm not sure which level that is, I want to say it's around like level 30 or so, you don't actually start unlocking perks with every level up. It'll be every other level up. So over time, it actually becomes much, much harder to get skill perks and or skill perk points and skill points. So the game's not broken. If you notice that you hit like level 30 or so and you're like, man, I just leveled up and didn't unlock a perk point. Well, it's because you're going to unlock it the next one. Eventually, though, once by the time you hit level 60, you'll have all the points that you can get and then go from there. When it comes to what DLCs you should buy, that one's going to be completely up to you guys. I'm not going to sway you one way or the other. The hunting reserves, you can actually test those out in multiplayer free of charge. You don't have to buy them. You can go and experience them for yourselves before you pull the trigger. I highly recommend doing that. That way you don't end up with something you don't like or want in the long run. That being said, I personally, if you've got the time, money, and effort, would recommend getting all of them just because they do add a lot to the game. Some of the better DLCs, though, that aren't reserves, I would say definitely the Trophy Lodge. It makes the game really, really replayable because obviously you're trying to fill that Trophy Lodge. For PC players, the tents DLC, the tents and ATVs, pretty useful. Tents or tripods and tree stands, again, that can be really helpful. Not required, but it's useful. And then really any of the weapons packs. Just go through, see what piques your interest, and go from there. Last but certainly not least, probably the most important tip that I can give is to have fun with the game and be patient. As cheesy as that sounds, it's very important because if you get burnout, you're not going to be that successful. Don't pay attention to too many trophy shots, all those diamonds that are out there on social media. Your time will come, trust me. Just stay at it and have fun. That being said, it's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any more questions, let me know in the comments below. Until next time, I'll see you guys in the next one.